Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Nerd Topic. You know, everybody has a subject, a hobby, maybe even a full-out profession that they just get extra nerdy about. I want to know what that topic is, and I want to talk to you about it. Tonight, our topic is film noir. We are joined with two, I would say, connoisseurs and artisans in the craft. To this direction, we have Michael Hood. And down here, oh, no, that way, here we go. We have our guests, Trillo and Suede.
That's me. He's Trillo. He's Suede.
Nice to meet you guys. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Likewise.
Yeah. Before we get jumping into the topic, why don't we just go around and say hi and let the audience know, you know, what you guys are into, what brings you here, anything interesting you want to say about your own personal connection to film noir or even your personal life. We'll start with Trillo and Suede.
Well, where do we begin? That's sort of the life we live is reflected by that whole genre. Just sort of works out that way. We're based in New York City.
In Brooklyn, actually. We have an office there.
We've been working together as a detective duo for, Jesus, how long was it?
Over 20 years now.
We started off doing a comedy routine, you know, typical ventriloquist dummy stuff. I got so sick of that, you know, because it's demeaning, it's humiliating. So I told Trillo here, after a little while, we've got to stop this. But we like working together, so what else could we do? You know, we figured that we like to analyze things.
I like to analyze people also.
And figure out puzzles.
Stuff like that.
So, well, it's a natural thing. Why don't we just investigate?
So we decided to become private investigators.
Our names got around. We got an interesting assortment of clients that just sort of found us. We don't advertise.
We want people to sort of intrinsically, organically just find us, word of mouth, because then we know that they really do want our services.
So it works out. We did. So now we're doing the series, of course, on the whole thing, on our experiences.
We have a web series. Called Trillo and Suede, oddly enough. And we've done 2 seasons, started last year, beginning of 2020, and we've completed 2 seasons of it, 10 episodes each.
It's based on our real life experiences, you know? So it's really cool. This way we wanted the world to see what we're doing and enjoy it.
Yeah, so our cases all take place, well, so far, mainly around the New York City area. Of course, we've had runouts to all kinds of exotic places.
Yeah, maybe later on in the feature film we could show you guys that stuff.
But we base ourselves very much on the whole genre of film noir because we love that.
Quintessential detectives were from that era. So that's what we base ourselves on.
Model ourselves on that. And we seem to work better in that atmosphere, in that mindset. You know, if we have that mindset, it seems like we can get into the frame of mind to solve mysteries, to interrogate, to question suspects much more effectively.
Fantastic. We're going to be sure to leave the link to Trillo and Suede somewhere in this area up here later on in the film, so keep an eye out for that. Michael Hood, tell us a little bit about yourself, buddy.
Well, I am a professional musician and an almost professional photographer for many, many years. I teach high school, which to me, that particular gig, because I'm in the art department and the music department, I think of it sort of, I mean, obviously I'm teaching them, but there is a little bit of a performance involved because teaching an elective, you know, if they don't like you, they're not going to take your class and your class isn't going to run. So there is a little bit of showbiz involved. My connection to film noir is just that I'm a very big fan. I've been watching and paying attention to Eddie Mueller, even before he was on TCM, but of course now he has that amazing midnight on Saturday night. There's a film noir, a new one every time, and he sets it up. He's got a bunch of books out, and you know, I've been interested in it for a very, very long time. Also, somewhat the music from it, but really the thing that really, really gets me going is that interwar period between World War II and the Korean War. That's the golden age of film noir. And I really feel like the tenor of those films captured the zeitgeist of the world at that time. You know, everything from the darkness, how, you know, pretty much everyone loses, and there's no sympathetic character.
Right.
You know, that someone's always wronged, or there's some kind of subterfuge. And the way it's shot, you know, we talked about that. You know, it's just in beautiful, beautiful black and white. And you know, by the late 40s, as you probably know, that they had figured out that if, you know, the actors were wearing certain actual colors, that it showed up better on the black and white film, because the film was getting better, the actual technology of film is getting better. There's a famous series of photographs of a set where they shot it in black and white, and everyone's wearing these garish, crazy colors. But when you see it, there are these beautiful tones. And, you know, it's just it's eye candy, it's thought candy, it's history candy. It's just amazing.
That's amazing. That's amazing. My entry point into it was probably reversed. I came into it more neo-noir from Blade Runner. I think that was my first, you know, access of just like, what is this detective story? Of course, I'd seen film noir type shows in the back of my mind, and obviously knew about it, but Blade Runner really kind of just brought me into that, like the stoic kind of grisly detective, and the tale kind of unravels as he's investigating it. And then I think I went backwards. And of course, Batman was always my entry point to any kind of detective story, and Gotham being sort of an inherently Chicago or LA or New York.
Yes, very noir. Gotham City is a noir city, absolutely.
Definitely. Well, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to look out for the tone quality, like to see the different shades of white that might be in the black and white, to see the different shades of black that might be black.
You see it really in the films sort of after World War II, like the early stuff, like, you know, Maltese Falcon, you know, stuff like that. You know, it's nice, but you look at something like The Big Clock, or Odds Against Tomorrow with Sidney Poitier. Oh my gosh, it just, the black and white leaps off it just looks so good on these new HD TVs, right?
Yeah, oh, I know, right? I know. Trillo and Suede, what is your, how could you say it, your most challenging case? Are you guys working on anything that has just like perplexed you beyond the point of any rationale?
Well, we got a feature film that is based on just that thing. While the Village Sleeps.
While the Village Sleeps takes place in a remote country inn, sort of there's an Agatha Christie feel to the experience, mixed with film noir meets Agatha Christie kind of thing.
That's represented. We represent that.
Well, we represent the film noir element to it, sort of displaced there. And there's an assortment of very odd characters.
You know, British, odd.
Yeah, and they're, but this assortment makes it very intriguing and difficult to pinpoint who is the serial killer, because that's the problem. We're stuck there for various reasons. And so that was a very suspenseful couple of nights we spent there in the little town called World's End, little village.
Not widely known.
Yes, but we will bring it to the world to be better known. And that, well, if you get a chance to see it someday, you'll see why that it was particularly challenging to try to figure out in the nick of time. Well, the nick of time to save ourselves, because not everybody escaped the serial killer in the course of that. But actually, you could find out earlier, because we have an ebook, an e-novel that we wrote, waiting to try to find a way to produce it. So that's on Kindle.
It's only $1, so it's well worth it. What's $1? I mean, you can download it, read it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so that's While the Village Sleeps.
We will be sure to leave the link below and check that out. And maybe when the movie drops, the film, the feature length, we can bring you back on again.
Sure, love to do that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So you're talking about it being, you know, sort of like removed of the city. I always think of like film noir as a landlocked kind of thing, and the congestion of the big city, and the mania that comes along with people working and crime and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's the iconic type. But but not always. You can have that sensibility in a more remote place. So some of them take place in non-city environments. But
Sure.
yeah, of course, usually the city is the gritty element is part of it usually.
Absolutely, yeah. What other, Michael, what other staples, whether they be environment or character types, what do you think is like the one or two through lines that, like, if they're not happening in the in the movie, it's not film noir? Like, what are the strong archetypes?
The strong archetypes that first jump to mind is that every one of them has a classic femme fatale. Every one of them has some, you know, like what they used to call a gun moll, you know, somebody who's hanging around. I don't know. You think of Barbara Stanwyck, you think of Lana Turner and Postman, you know, like they chew up the scenery, they chew up the scenes. It's amazing. And they're an amazing foil. They're often also wearing lighter colors than the guys. And, you know, it makes like a nice balance in the photo. That's one thing.
We got the close-ups also. Sorry to interrupt you, but also, you know, I noticed that the close-ups of the leading ladies, the
Femme fatales.
yeah, usually shot very bright.
Very bright. You notice that usually it's very glowing. They get that glowing look on their faces for their close-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big reflector that you can't see right off the camera, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Gets
because
that-
the rest of the room is pitch dark, right?
Sure. It gets that oversaturated light kind of thing. Like it's almost
Right.
aura of some kind around them in a way, or everything's a little, I like that. I love that.
And I think by the mid 40s, you start to see the Dutch angle a lot, you know,
Okay.
which of course they borrowed from, you know, the German expressionist filmmakers, you know, that was their whole thing. And Fritz Lang, of course, classic film noir director, brought that with him. I mean, he did Metropolis for Pete's sake, and then he made films noir. Like, come on.
yeah.
That's amazing, right? But you get all these crazy, crazy angles. You know, you think about a film like, oh, I don't know, The Big Sleep, maybe.
Oh, I don't think I saw.
Yeah, there's or Laura.
Big Sleep.
Michael, if you figured it out, you got to tell us. We're still trying to figure out the big sleep. What the heck's going on there?
Yeah, that's just it. It's completely ambiguous, and people at the time walked out of the theater scratching their heads. I love it.
Do you think that's also one of the not tropes per se, but another one of those kind of staples that maybe the ending it leaves a little bit to you know, did they quite get away with that crime, or they get caught in a few weeks, or
right? You think about something like Detour, like the ending of Detour, you know, which is maybe my favorite one of all. It's
one of our favorites.
Completely ambiguous. On the other hand, the other thing that happens is, you know, everybody dies.
Right.
Like I already mentioned, Odds Against Tomorrow, and in the end, that whole scene with the two of them, I don't give it away, but there's a fire and there's a fight, and it doesn't work out, and everyone's gone.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, talking about everybody's gone. I think we got to get going now, unfortunately, because we got a meeting with a client. And
it was really nice to meet you guys.
Likewise,
nice also, we can't be late for this because she's a looker, you know.
Hey,
so nice to see you both. See you.
Thanks for being here. Yep.
All right.
Oh, wait a second. You know, I think there's someone who would like to talk to you if you don't mind, because we've got this fanatical fan who hangs around a lot. He helps us out, although he's a little weird. Jonathan.
Sure, yeah, you know.
Yeah, he's hanging around now. He has a delusion. He thinks that he created us and our characters. He thinks he writes all our scripts. He's basically a nut job, but he's harmless. So we keep him around here sometimes to help out. I think he'd like to talk to you.
We'll see if he's available. Okay.
Sure, bring him along. Yeah, I have the mute button in case he gets too out of control. You know.
Oh my goodness.
This is
wow.
Hilarious.
What a duo.
Yeah.
What
yeah. That's so real.
Yeah, so the photographic angle, man, that's got to appeal to you too, visually speaking. You know, it's just
Yeah,
And
just to ricochet back to what you were saying for the audience, I guess a Dutch angle would be, let's see,
yeah, there
something
you
like,
go. Yeah, yeah, right up your
something.
nose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely true.
Right, right,
And
right,
then,
right.
so this is a good one for you. Somebody, I was watching like an all encapsulated film noir montage or something, and it was a pretty good video. I'll try to link that here as well. But the host said deep focus was another element of it. Have you ever heard of that?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
I can't think of any examples. I would like to see what he was talking about, but
Yeah.
I have read that. Um, yeah, there's a number of things that make it a noir, but you know, I got to be honest. I mean, I feel you on Blade Runner and Batman as having completely noir effects. I feel like
Right.
they're kind of neo noir in a way,
Of
you know,
course. Yeah.
and the which is fantastic. And I would say the same thing about the color noir films like Blood Simple and LA Confidential
Right.
and
Chinatown, stuff like that.
Chinatown. Yeah, they're noir stories and they have noir angles, but they're shot in California in the sunlight.
Right.
There's no sun, there's no sunshine. Noir.
Yeah.
There's no California in there.
Yeah. No. Well,
I
it
mean,
looks like our
oh, hey, there he
spontaneous
is.
surprise guest showed up. Hello there.
Yes, hi. I guess I'm the substitute here. I know Trillo and Suede, who I volunteer for, help them out because I love the work that they do. They asked me if I could fill in because they had to run to a case. So nice to meet you
We're
guys.
throwing you under the bus just a little bit, Jonathan. You should know.
Yeah, I know that about them, but you know, I kind of forgive them because you know, I just think it's so cool what they're doing, and the fact that they're fulfilling, you know, stuff that I wrote. You know, there are two camps about this. Of course, I created them, but they think that that they sort of created me or something. Or
They run the show. I see.
Yeah.
You know, a democratic approach would probably work out. You guys seem like you're doing all right, but yeah, that fourth wall of who created who and who's it's
Yeah, that's one of the things I that inspired me about the whole project of Trillo and Suede is the absurdist type of humor and the feeling of alienation and questioning of reality, you know, and that to me there's a connection with film noir, which is why I created these characters. I'm a ventriloquist, of course, so I have many other characters. I do all kinds of shows, but I had this concept since I love the film noir genre, and I wanted to combine it somehow to do something film noirish as a ventriloquist. So that's why I came up with this idea of the detectives and creating an alternate universe, which is a combination of that world in 1940s combined with anachronisms from today, a Neverland.
Yeah, I watched some of your episodes on YouTube, and I liked how occasionally they would break out of the typical, you know, Great Depression kind of manic, psychologically manic time of film noir, and just kind of break into like a beach, and there'd be a guy like in modern dress and stuff like that. Or, you know, one of your clients says like, "I'll text you the details," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So they just jumped right out of that, you know. But that's cool. I appreciate that. That. So, I guess would it be an overstatement or an oversimplification to say that most film noirs are a tragedy in their own way?
Yeah, I don't think that's an overstatement at all. I think there is, you know, like I said, kind of everybody loses in a classic film noir. I think about a film like DOA or Out of the Past, you know, these are all classics. And like I said, there's often not a sympathetic character in the entire thing. Everyone's kind of going after somebody else, you know? It's really something. And again, I go back to what I was saying before, that time, that liminal space in between the sort of, you know, nuclear atomic 50s and the, you know, everybody, you know, all for one for all, you know, World War II kind of thing, that no one really knew what was up. The genie was out of the bottle with the atomic bomb, but no one really knew. And, you know, things were changing.
Yeah.
They, you know, they integrated the military in 47, right in the middle of it. You know, just things were changing everywhere and people were freaked out. And I think that's reflected in some of those films.
Yeah.
And if you go deep, on a movie like The Big Clock, which is considered a B film, you really, or like I said with Detour, it's almost got like a Blair Witch feeling to it because it's shot so cheaply, and sometimes the camera shaking a little bit. It almost feels like cinema verite, like you're getting a piece of, it's a film, but like it's so kind of almost realistic because it's so cheap.
Right.
You get this kind of flavor of, wow, man, I'm really glad I'm alive in 2021 and not 1948. You know what I mean? Although the music in 1948, come on, man. Hype, bebop, bring it. Bring it.
Yeah.
So Detour, in fact, is one of my main inspirations. I'd say one of my favorite noirs because of the very fact that it's so cheaply done, so low budget, but done so well within their limitations. I mean, the plot line, the characters feel so real, and it's so suspenseful and engaging, and this very troubled, hopeless. Get the feeling of hopelessness of the main character, with the femme fatale who lives up to the name of the femme fatale, being deadly to be around. But the fact that they almost break the fourth wall. They don't literally break it, but the fact that I kind of like sort of being able to go in and out of the reality, and just seeing the fact that it's kind of it's low budget, at least in the back of your mind, and it kind of adds something to it, that an uneasiness or kind of unsureness, which kind of strengthens actually the experience of that feeling of alienation, of things not being quite right.
Yeah, and another thing about Detour, I don't know if either one of you guys watched Mad Men. Do you remember that series that was on?
Not really.
I've seen highlights of Mad Men, but that's definitely on my list.
It was really, really well done. But one of the central sort of storylines that you don't really find out until several episodes in is a stolen identity. And that, of course, is the central thing in Detour. You know what I mean? Right. When I first saw Mad Men, I went, oh, man, look at that. Here they've made a whole story out of this, except this guy, it's, anyway. So I would say, if I would say to anyone who's watching or listening, I'll point to Eddie Mueller's show on TCM on Saturday nights, and they show it again on Sunday. But he sets it up really nicely, and he is literally a world expert on noir, always wearing his fedora. There's a lot of films. A lot of these films are on YouTube, believe it or not.
Yeah. You can just
spend
a whole weekend and watch a bunch of them, really get a flavor.
It's interesting to me. I think as far as film noir, what grabs me so much about it is that it's it seems like something depressing, something that would be like negative or bring people down, but that's on the surface. For me, it kind of has the opposite effect, because it's sort of like listening to soulful, sad music, like listening to Chopin, one of my favorite composers. Most of his music was so heart-wrenchingly sad, and yet it's cathartic to experience it. So it's sort of, when you have that in the framework of an actual work of art, a movie that's created these characters and the settings and everything, and with all the tragic and general feeling of hopelessness, which is usually there, and distress, and terrible emotional chaos or whatever, all this kind of stuff. But it feels like something, in a way, sort of comforting to be watching that from someplace else, and know that it's sort of a community of spirit that, well, yes, life is very difficult and challenging for all of us in one way or the other, and it's kind of refreshing. It's as a counterbalance to like happily ever after, or false kinds of reassurances of what life is like.
It's almost like the blues, like you're commiserating in a way, and I'm the same way when I listen to old jazz standards, and most of them are unrequited love or love lost and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, of course they're sad, but it's almost like, you know, we've all experienced this love as well. So in a way, you could look at it from a removed vantage point and say, like, well, at least I had that love. You know, better to love than love and lost than never loved at all, kind of thing.
Right.
I think there's a little bit of that in film noir.
And there is an element of Schadenfreude. You have to say, you look at these things and you go, wow, I'm glad that's not me. You know what I mean? Like, you look at it and you go, wow, that guy is completely unsympathetic, you know?
Yeah.
I think of a movie like The Killers, you know, everybody that's a knucklehead, every single one of them. You wouldn't want a beer with any one of them.
That speaks to a point of why I'm always going to be on the side of the artist and not censoring art and not really like kind of curbing. I mean, you know, of course you need the rating system, of course there should be guidelines, but when it comes to it, I think the human experience really, the way we're designed in some strange way is that we can really learn from seeing something. Not necessarily, I mean, you'll never learn until you really integrate it and it happens to you, but you could see bad things and not necessarily be tempted to do them. You could see them and just say, that is bad. I feel sorry for that person. I have empathy. I am never going to do that. You know, I think there's a good voyeuristic quality of watching a lot of things that could be considered dark material or disturbing or deviant behavior and stuff. I think you could really learn from those kind of things. And
well, the different kind of leading characters too. There are variations, because in some of the classic film noirs, the main character, which is usually a man who has some kind of huge burden or problem or secret of one sort or the other, but sometimes they're an everyman kind of, and one can see like yeah, so that's how it happened, like oh, step by step falling into traps, and it's like in some cases it's like, oh yeah, well I would know better, but other times it's like, no, I think, to be honest, I could fall into those traps too, especially when femme fatales are involved.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
Double Indemnity, you know, one of the great ones.
Double Indemnity, right?
Yeah, I mean, every step of the way. I don't know, maybe Michael would feel differently, but whenever I watch that, which I watched several times, it's like, you know, like, oh, don't be so stupid, don't fall for that, don't fall for it. And yet at the same time, yeah, I might fall for her too.
Yeah.
You know?
For her, yeah, indeed, and that whole thing of relating to the character, that's another way, you know, despite the fact that, you know, especially, you know, Detour is another good example of that. You know, he's just a guy on the road and it just happens. You know, it could happen to you. It could happen to anyone. Look what happened to this poor schmuck, right?
Yeah.
You know, you can't all be Richard Widmark, you know?
Right.
Who's Richard Widmark? I'm not familiar with him.
Pick Up on South Street. That's
Pick Up on South Street. Yeah. He was a big Hollywood actor, but he got his start making noirs, and he's a really good noir actor.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
He was great in that. And then recently I saw one. His first movie was a noir, and I forgot the name of it. Maybe Michael will know. I think it was his first movie. It's not one of the most famous ones. I thought it was really good. He plays a psychotic gangster killer. Yeah, but I can't remember right now. But yeah, he was great.
Who's the quintessential, you know, hard-boiled detective? Like, is it? I don't want to throw any names out there to steal your thunder, but Michael, who's your archetypal or pinnacle of?
Oh, that's got to be the Philip Marlowe character that shows up in all of them. You know, from the Chandler books and all of that stuff. Yeah. It's always that guy. A bunch of different, you know, Bogey plays him in Maltese Falcon, and Robert Mitchum plays him in The Killing, maybe, I forget. But anyway, that's the classic, you know. And of course, there's a couple of them that have voiceovers, and that's another thing, you know, where the guy's telling the story. DOA, of course, is the one where he's telling it from the grave, not to give it away, but like that he's telling the story, you know. But you know what I mean? Like it's really clever filmmaking for 1946. You know,
Dick Powell. Murder My Sweet. Dick Powell played Philip Marlowe. I believe it's Philip Marlowe, his character, right? Yeah. In Murder My Sweet. Yeah. So yeah, that's also a great one. Personally, Bogey's my favorite. That's kind of to me the quintessential detective. But I enjoy the other characterizations also.
Do you think that the narrative was sort of born? You said voiceover, and for a second I thought you meant that there was a different voice for the actor, but you actually mean voiceover as in it's
right. I meant
the
there's a narrative
right?
going on, and the character is telling the story. You know?
Sure. Do you think that started in the film noir? Like, I'm just wondering, as far as the history of film, whether that appeared anywhere else.
You know, I don't really know.
Yeah.
I do think that there were some films sort of in the pre-code era in the early 1930s that they did that,
Right.
but I think they made good use of it in war. I think the times that because they didn't overdo it, but there are a number, I would say 3 or 4 that I know where it happens.
Right.
You know, you all of a sudden hear this disembodied voice and you're watching the scene, you know.
Yeah. I always thought it was tastefully done when you can start it off pretty heavy-handed and the narrative is happening, and you know, maybe scene to next scene to next scene, but then it fades and you've forgotten that it's a narrative, and now you're in the past technically, but then later on when that voice comes back in, it's not jarring. It's not like, oh yeah, I forgot this. There's some, you know, soft entry to it to bring that voice back in.
I agree. There's definitely an art to doing it. There's definitely an art to doing it, for sure. I don't know, man. I tried, I had at the high school where I teach for a number of years, I had a cinema club, and the whole club was this. We met at the Ambler Theater when they were showing something good, and then we all watched the film together, and then we went and had gelato across the street and discussed it. That was the whole club.
Sounds like my kind of club.
Yeah. And we saw Lady from Shanghai, you know, the class.
Orson Welles. Right.
Orson Welles, yeah. And the kids, you know, these were salty teenagers from, when would I start doing this? 06, 07, somewhere in there. So they're grown-ups now, but they're salty teens. They were blown away. They're like, we didn't realize movies could be like this, you know, whatever. It was really something to see. And that's the other thing. Whenever, you know, theaters open back up again, every once in a while, Ambler or the county, or even over in Phoenixville, what's that one called? Colonial? I forget, the one where they have the blob thing every year. Do you guys know about that?
Oh wow, yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
They film the movie The Blob there. So every summer they have Blob Fest where they reenact the scene of everyone running out the theater and they have a big party or whatever. They show really great old films there. I saw Rafiki there, believe it or not, that famous French film that was banned in France because the first I want to say 25 minutes of the film are completely silent, and the thieves are in the apartment above the jewelry store drilling into the ceiling, and the French authorities thought, oh my God, this is all over. Everyone is going to do this. They banned it in France. Yeah, it's a 1955 black and white Rafiki. And about 6 of my kids drove all the way over to Phoenixville to watch it with me. And we were like the only people in the theater. But I would say to anyone who's interested in this, absolutely, like I said, check it out. But if one of these theaters around here shows it, seeing it on the big screen, oh, there is nothing like it, man. Nothing like it.
Guys, we are at the 1 minute mark. It's going to be a fast farewell to my guest, Jonathan Geffner, Michael Hood, earlier, Trillo and Suede. Guys, it's a pleasure.